My parents told me my child was not welcomed at the family gathering because she made people uncomfortable, so I left. Days later, they showed up pretending nothing happened because they needed money. My mom was standing near the tree sipping a wine spritzer, barely looking at me. Her eyes were fixed on my daughter like she was something foreign. My 9-month-old had just woken up from the drive, cheeks flushed from the cold, her tiny hand clutching the edge of my scarf. She wasn't even crying, just quiet, curious, trying to make sense of all the lights. But it didn't matter. "I'm sorry, but your baby makes people uncomfortable," my mom said. I just stared at her. My dad, who hadn't looked up from whatever football game was on, smirked like it was some kind of punchline. "She's right. Sit this one out." I stood there holding my baby with one arm and a giant reusable shopping bag full of carefully wrapped gifts in the other. My back hurt from the long drive. I was still recovering from mastitis the week before, and my winter coat was damp with melted snow. I hadn't come expecting much, just a normal Christmas, but even that was apparently too much. No one offered to take the bag. No one asked how we were. My sister Jenny walked in from the kitchen already on her second mimosa and looked at me like I'd tracked in something foul. One of her kids was sitting on the floor playing with a new iPad, probably from me if last year was any pattern. She didn't say hi either. I shifted the baby on my hip and told them, "If I'm not welcome, that's fine, but you all need to know this is the last time I do this." My mom blinked. Jenny scoffed. My dad chuckled. I looked straight at them and said it without emotion. "If you don't want me or my daughter here, then I will stop financing your lifestyle." That shut them up for a second. Then the laughter started, but it wasn't the kind that lightens the mood. It was mocking. My dad actually clapped once. Jenny leaned against the kitchen doorway and said something about postpartum hormones. My mom muttered something about me always needing attention. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I just said it again. "You will not receive another dollar from me. No more mortgage help, no more school tuition, no more emergency cash transfers, no more groceries, ballet classes, braces, car notes, rent insurance. You've all lived off me like parasites for years while making me feel like I'm the burden." I walked into the living room, set the bag of wrapped presents on the floor next to the fireplace, picked up my diaper bag and turned around. Jenny followed me toward the door. "You're seriously leaving? You're going to ruin Christmas for everyone over a baby tantrum that hasn't even happened yet." I didn't answer. I buckled my daughter into her car seat while snow started falling again. Heavy, thick flakes that blurred the windshield by the time I got in. The roads were getting worse by the minute, but I wasn't staying. I'd rather slide into a ditch than sit through another hour in that house. The drive home was silent. My daughter dozed off quickly, and I glanced at her every few minutes. Her pacifier bobbed with each breath, and the glow from the dashboard made her face look impossibly soft. I didn't cry, not even once. I think a part of me had expected it to go this way. When we finally pulled into my driveway, it was close to midnight. The snow had piled up in ridges across the walkway. I carried her inside, kissed her forehead, and laid her down gently in the bassinet. Then I sat on the edge of the bed looking at the presents I had left in their house. I realized I hadn't even labeled them with names. I had memorized each one, who it was, for what I'd thought when I bought it. I thought maybe they'd open them and feel something. But deep down, I knew they wouldn't. No one had said her name the whole night, not once. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want them to. The morning after Christmas, I woke up to silence. No text from my mom, no missed calls from Jenny, nothing from my dad, not even a lazy emoji or a picture of the twins holding up their presents. You'd think I hadn't spent 3 days picking out those gifts with care or driven 2 hours through a snowstorm just to be told I wasn't welcome. I sat in my kitchen with lukewarm coffee, watching my daughter smack her mashed banana across the high chair tray, and realized I'd done something irreversible. Not just by walking out, but by speaking the truth out loud about the money, about them leeching off me for years, about how exhausted I was from pretending it didn't bother me. And I meant every word, but still the silence stung. I wasn't surprised they didn't reach out. I was surprised by how quickly they moved on. By evening, I gave up checking my phone and turned it off. That night, I fed my daughter mashed carrots, gave her a bath, and watched her fall asleep with her little fingers curled around mine. She looked so peaceful in her crib, so innocent. I whispered, "You're never going to grow up thinking that kind of love is normal. I promise you that." The next morning, I heard knocking. Not a single knock. Not the friendly kind. This was loud, repeated, and persistent. I glanced at the baby monitor. She was still asleep. I walked barefoot to the door, cracked it open, and nearly slammed it shut again. My entire family was on my front porch. My mom holding a Tupperware container like a peace offering. My dad had pulled low eyes half closed like he couldn't be bothered. Jenny stood in the back with her arms crossed, flanked by the twins who were tossing snowballs at each other. Her husband was sitting in their van engine running like he didn't plan on staying long. I didn't say anything, just opened the door wide enough for them to come in. They filed in like it was nothing. My mom made a show of taking off her boots on the mat. She walked straight into the kitchen and placed the container on my counter without asking. My dad plopped down on my couch. Jenny didn't even look at me. She was already on her phone. It took them all of 5 minutes to get comfortable. Then came the soft voices, the apologetic tones. My mom saying, "We were wrong," while she wiped down my counter like she was helping. My dad muttering, "I didn't mean it like that," as he scrolled through his phone. Jenny telling me, "It wasn't personal. You were just emotional." They kept calling me that. Emotional like that was the problem. Not the years of taking, not the way they made me feel like I owed them something for existing, just me and my emotions. Then they got to the part they'd rehearsed. They wanted to make things right, start fresh. They missed their granddaughter. They wanted to be part of her life. They wanted to spend New Year's together. My mom smiled and said she already got new decorations. Jenny said her husband could pick us up. My dad offered to shovel my driveway. For once it was all smoke. They never said the words, but I could feel it in everything. They danced around. The mortgage payment was due soon. Jenny's son needed help with school tuition again. My mom's car was making a weird noise. Gas prices were up. Groceries too. I sat there holding my daughter, just listening, nodding in the right places, pretending to consider it. That night, after they'd eaten my food and used my bathroom and acted like nothing had ever happened, they went to sleep. My dad on the couch, Jenny in my guest room, my mom in the rocking chair with a throw blanket still clutching her tea like she was the victim. Around midnight, I found her purse in the bathroom. She'd left it on the sink. Her phone screen was lit up from a recent message. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The preview was right there. It was from Jenny. "Told you she'd fold. She always does." My hands went numb. I walked into the living room and looked at all of them. Snoring, curled up cozy in the home. They couldn't even pretend to respect. And for the first time in my life, I felt something colder than the snow outside. They didn't come to apologize. They came because they were losing their ATM, and they thought I'd never catch on. The next morning it was like they'd never been here. My kitchen still smelled faintly like the leftovers they brought, but that was it. No note, no thanks. Just an empty guest bed, a half-used roll of toilet paper in the bathroom, and a wine glass in the sink with lipstick I didn't recognize. They left just after breakfast. My mom mumbled something about calling soon. Jenny gave a forced smile, then reminded me her son's tuition was due again next week like I had forgotten. My dad didn't even look up from his phone as he stepped into their SUV. I stood in the doorway and watched them drive off, holding my daughter close against my chest. She was quiet again like she'd been most of the week. I watched the car disappear, then shut the door slowly, and something in me just stopped. I sat down on the floor right there in the hallway and didn't move for 20 minutes. I wasn't even sad. I was tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. By noon, I had opened my bank app and hovered over the scheduled payments, mortgage help for my parents, the prepaid balance for Jenny's kids' school, my dad's insurance premium, everything I had been covering for the last year and a half. I didn't cancel them, not yet. I stared at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. I told myself maybe they really were sorry. Maybe they were just clumsy at showing it. But something in me felt off, like I was still being watched. At 4:13 p.m., my phone rang. It was Aunt Linda. We weren't close. She'd always been around, but on the edges. My dad's older sister, widowed, no kids, the kind of woman who sent me $25 checks for birthdays with perfect cursive handwriting and quietly left family parties early without saying goodbye. I picked up expecting something awkward, but she sounded different, calm, but with a kind of weight in her voice that made me sit up straight. She asked if I was alone. I told her yes. She asked if she could talk to me about something she heard. I told her she could say whatever she wanted. She didn't ease into it. She said she'd been at my parents' house the day after Christmas. She stopped by to drop off a box of dishes. Nothing serious, just a visit. She said when she walked in, they were laughing. Not just laughing, laughing about me. They were sitting around the table with Jenny and her husband drinking leftover wine and talking about how dramatic I'd been. My mom called me hysterical. My dad said she thinks we need her, but she'll come crawling back. Then Linda said she heard Jenny say she's broke emotionally, not financially. That's the worst kind. She'll crack first. I didn't speak. I didn't even breathe. She went on. She told me they had it all mapped out. They said they'd give me a few days, then show up, act sorry, and get me back where they wanted me. Jenny joked about bringing the kids because that always works. My mom rolled her eyes about how soft I am when it comes to family. My dad said, "We've got her wrapped." Wrapped. That word hit harder than the rest. Linda paused. Then she said she wasn't planning to call me. She didn't want to get involved. But after what she heard, after seeing the way they were so sure they could manipulate me back into place, she couldn't ignore it. She said she knew they were using me. She just hadn't realized how deep it ran, how cruel they'd become. I sat in silence, staring out the window at the bare trees swaying in the wind, my daughter napping in the next room. I felt something collapse inside me. Then something else took its place. I said, "Thank you." She said she was here if I ever needed anything. I believed her. After we hung up, I walked straight to my laptop and logged into every account I'd linked to them. I canceled it all. Mortgage assistance gone, school tuition canceled, car insurance revoked, grocery card turned off, family phone plan shut down, and then I blocked every number: my mom, my dad, Jenny, her husband. Within an hour, the calls started. Then the texts from new numbers. "Rachel, what's going on?" "Hey, we think your bank glitched. You didn't mean to cancel all that, right?" Then came the guilt. "How could you do this to your own family? You're punishing the kids. This is so unfair. After we tried to make peace and my favorite, you're overreacting." I didn't respond. By evening, the tone had shifted. They realized I wasn't bluffing. Jenny sent a long paragraph about how I'd better remember who was there for me when my husband left. My dad sent a one-line text. "You're on a power trip." Then silence. I stood in my living room holding my baby, watching her reach up for the ceiling fan like it was the most magical thing in the world. And for the first time in a long time, I realized something. They hadn't just underestimated me, they had forgotten who they were dealing with. They figured it out quickly, sooner than I expected. By the morning after I cut them off, Jenny had already left 2 voicemails from a new number. The first one started with, "Hey, I think there's a glitch with the bank," and ended with, "Call me ASAP." The second one was less friendly. By noon, my mom was emailing me from 3 different accounts. All of them said some version of the same thing, confused, concerned. Don't let one fight ruin everything. She reminded me that I was emotional. She reminded me that they tried. And of course, she reminded me that family is forever. I didn't reply. I didn't even open most of them. I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking tea while my daughter napped when the third message came in. This one was from Jenny's husband. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity got the better of me. It said, "Hey, I'm staying out of it, but you should know your mom's really losing it. Talking about lawyers. Says you stole from the family. Thought you'd want to know." I read it twice. That's when it hit me. They weren't just upset I cut them off. They were panicking because for the first time in years, they weren't in control. I walked over to the window and stared out at the snow-covered street. Everything looked still peaceful, but I knew what was brewing behind the scenes. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That afternoon, I started getting texts from unknown numbers. "Hope you're doing okay. We should talk. Your mom's not well. You're hurting everyone with this stunt." I turned off my phone. Instead of spiraling, I did something else. I logged into every financial account I'd ever connected them to. Phone carrier utilities, school payments, medical subscriptions, grocery cards, every string they could tug, I cut. I even removed my name from the emergency contact forms at the school Jenny's twins attended. I wasn't their fallback anymore. Then I opened a spreadsheet. I didn't plan to do anything with it, but I needed to see it for myself. 2 years of transactions, gift cards for holidays, mortgage top-ups, last-minute rent checks, surprise car repairs, Jenny's therapy bills, my dad's medication, my mom's 3 different streaming services. All of it added up to more than what I'd made the year I graduated college. That number hit me hard. I hadn't just been helping them, I'd been funding their lives. Around 3 p.m. the doorbell rang. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole. No one there. I stepped out, and sitting on my welcome mat was a box. No label, no sender, just brown paper, my name in black marker. Inside was a framed photo. Christmas 3 years ago. Me on the living room floor holding one of Jenny's twins, both of us laughing. Everyone looked happy. The kind of photo you'd see on a postcard, but taped to the back was a note. You were happy once. That's the version of you we miss. Think about that before you ruin what's left. No signature. The handwriting wasn't familiar, but the message was clear. They were trying to guilt me into reversing everything. Subtle manipulation wrapped in sentimentality. It didn't work. I put the photo face down on the counter and turned on all the lights in the house. That night, I moved my daughter's crib into my bedroom. I didn't think they'd do anything reckless, but I also didn't trust them not to. After she fell asleep, I sat on the couch in the dark scrolling. That's when I saw it. An old family friend had posted on Facebook. A vague post about how sad it is when people forget who raised them. She didn't tag me, but the comments were filled with familiar names agreeing. My mom's name popped up 3 times. She was spreading her version of the story already. I clicked off the app, sat back and stared at the ceiling, and then I smiled because she had no idea how much worse it was about to get for them. It began with a failed payment notification. Jenny's credit card had bounced during a routine dentist visit. She was trying to pay for a follow-up cleaning for one of the twins, something I'd been quietly covering for months. I got the alert because apparently the account was still tied to my email from when I set it up for her last summer. Then came the text. It was short, passive-aggressive. Typical. Hope you're happy. They had to reschedule the appointment. The twins were embarrassed. I didn't respond, but I stared at that last word for a long time. Embarrassed. Not about how she'd laughed behind my back. Not about the manipulation or the freeloading, though. She was embarrassed because her kids had to reschedule a dentist appointment. An hour later, my mom emailed me. Another one-liner. We're all very disappointed in you. I sat there in my kitchen staring at the screen like it might say something else if I gave it time. I didn't even bother opening the full message. I just flagged it, archived it, and moved on. But the tone was changing. I could feel it. They weren't angry anymore. They were unraveling. Jenny's school payment had been declined too. I found out when the school office called me, assuming there had been some mistake since I was the listed financial contact. I told them to remove my name from everything. They didn't ask questions. The next one to reach out was my dad. He used a new number, maybe a burner, or maybe someone else's phone, and left a voicemail I didn't expect. He started off calm, said he thought things had gotten out of hand, said he didn't agree with everything Mom and Jenny did, but that I was making this too big. He even said he missed his granddaughter. Then he asked if I'd call him, just maybe we could work something out. I played the message twice. It almost sounded reasonable. Almost. But not once did he say sorry. Not once did he mention Christmas. Not once did he ask how I was. He just wanted the money back in motion. That's all this was. The kindness of a man realizing his benefits were slipping away. That same night, a mutual friend messaged me out of nowhere. She said, "Hey, I don't want to stir anything up, but your mom's been talking. She's saying you've become cold, that you're taking things out on the family. She even hinted you might be having a breakdown." I stared at that message, not surprised. It was exactly what I expected, but it still stung. Not because it was true, but because I knew my mom believed it could be true. That's how little she thought of me. I replied, "Thank you for telling me." She sent one more message a few minutes later. "Aunt Linda posted something. You should see it." I hadn't spoken to Linda since the call. I hadn't needed to. But when I opened Facebook and saw the post she'd written, I actually stopped breathing for a second. It wasn't long, just a paragraph. She wrote about what it's like to watch someone give and give until there's nothing left. About how families often mistake generosity for obligation, about how silence becomes complicity, and how sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is walk away. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. Everyone in our extended family would know exactly who she was talking about. Within an hour, the comments rolled in. Dozens, then hundreds people thanking her, some sharing their own stories, and some were people who used to comment under my mom's post. People who had liked all those passive-aggressive jabs, the subtle digs, the fake sympathy. Now they were silent, or worse, for her liking Linda's post. That night, I got a final message from my mom. It came from her 4th email address. This doesn't have to go any further. Let's not air dirty laundry. You're not this person, Rachel. You're better than this. I stood in my living room holding my daughter, looking at those words and realizing something I hadn't fully accepted until then. They hadn't just been living off my money. They had built an entire image of me, a character who was endlessly giving, endlessly forgiving, endlessly available. They didn't love me. They loved the role I played. And now the role was gone. So I replied finally. I wrote, "You used me, and then you laughed about it. We're done." I hit send, then blocked the address, closed the laptop, and that was it. No apology came, just silence. And somewhere I knew they were scrambling because without me, the foundation cracked. The bills stacked up, the lies lost their power. The stories they told about me no longer matched the version of me they couldn't reach anymore. The silence lasted 3 days. Not a call, not a message, not even another burner number. I didn't realize how deep their need for control ran until it went quiet. Because for them, silence wasn't retreat. It was strategy. They wanted me to feel it, to think maybe I'd gone too far, that maybe I was the one tearing the family apart. But this time it didn't work. I was already past the point of guilt, past the fear of being too much or not enough. I had seen it for what it was. They wanted a version of me they could manage, not the real one. Not the mother who had survived every lonely night of new motherhood while they ignored my calls. Not the woman who held them all together for years while they chipped away at her piece by piece. They didn't miss me. They missed the access. On the 4th day, I heard a knock. It was snowing again. I opened the door slowly, expecting maybe a delivery or some envelope shoved through the crack. That I saw Aunt Linda. And not just her. Her husband was there too, holding a casserole dish under his coat. Behind him were their 2 adult kids, my cousins holding bags of groceries, gifts, and a wrapped box with my daughter's name on it in big, colorful letters. I didn't say anything for a second. I just stared. Linda smiled and said, "We figured you probably haven't had a break in a while." She was right. I let them in. No one asked questions. No one brought up my mom or Jenny. No one made excuses. They just filled the house with warmth. My daughter lit up immediately. My cousin sat on the floor and played peekaboo with her for almost an hour while Linda made tea and asked me if I had any laundry she could help with. We had dinner together. Nothing fancy, just something hot and filling. Afterward, they sat with me in the living room while the baby napped. I asked Linda why she really came. She shrugged. Because family isn't supposed to be conditional, and because I was wrong for being quiet all these years. Then she told me something I hadn't expected. She said my mom had called her the day before screaming accusing, told her she was banned from the house, from the family, from everything, said she was poisoning me, that she was destroying the only structure keeping us all together. But Linda just told her the truth. The only thing that was ever holding the family together was me, and I had finally stepped away. That night after they left, I sat in the nursery for a while. My daughter was asleep in her crib, one hand curled around the edge of her blanket. I looked at her tiny face and wondered if maybe, just maybe, that fussy, sensitive part of her everyone had judged so harshly wasn't about being difficult. Maybe she just knew. Maybe she felt it. That love wasn't real when it came with conditions. Maybe that's why she cried in that house. But tonight, she hadn't cried once. Before bed, I opened the box they left for her. Inside were handmade toys, a framed photo of us from years ago, and a card. It wasn't long. Just 6 words in Linda's familiar cursive. "You're not alone, not anymore." I closed the box and placed it on the shelf above her crib. And for the first time since Christmas, I slept through the night. No guilt, no second guessing, no checking my phone to see who needed what from me. Just peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop asking people to love you the way you need and start loving yourself enough to walk away.